Hello everybody, welcome to another stream. I am Mr. Shins, and I have special permission to stream this demo, Bright Oak, from the developer. So, and I actually streamed this before, so this is it's part one redo, Redux. Because when I streamed it the first time, I accidentally somehow muted the game audio. And it has lovely audio. So just gonna do probably, I'm thinking I'll probably try and do this in 4 parts over the next 4 weeks. Do about an hour tonight, and go until we get to where it feels like a good stopping place. And yeah, here we go. So we're gonna start a new game. I have no idea where I am, but it feels awfully hot for early summer. I'm sure there are rattlesnakes, possibly mountain lions. I'll have to be careful. I look up again at the remote landscape. Probably the only car to pass in a month, too. Figures. The road, well maintained, fully paved, empty as the void, dips down to cut a black scar through a wide meadow, the wind washing over the summer grasses in waves which glimmer like liquid gold in the afternoon sun, the only shadows cast by lonely oak trees and colossal boulders. Quite picturesque for the middle of nowhere. There must be something besides rocks, grass, and the occasional tree, though. There's been a fence along the side in places. Maybe a ranch, a retreat, a cultist compound of some kind? Eventually, my snake-bitten, cougar-chewed corpse will be found, if nothing else. Death by detour. I should have replaced that spare. I've been meaning to for months now. No one to blame but myself. And the GPS. And the fire. And that rabbit. And the rock. And hold up, signs of civilization ahead. Trotting as briskly as I can with my bruises, I am somewhat less thrilled as the weathered sign comes into clearer view. Restricted area, authorized military access only. A bit about potential unexploded military ordnance. Not the most hospitable, maybe, but a literal sign of some form of habitation all the same. Authorized military must be around if they're permitted access to the restricted area full of explosives. I hope so, anyway. Maybe there'll be a real entrance further ahead, one that doesn't involve a minefield. The only breaks in the fence are where it is tumbled down from apparent neglect, though I spot intermittent stretches on either side of the road now. Pretty lazy if there are unexploded bombs lying about. Maybe it was an exaggeration, or is this really just that remote? A particularly large granite outcropping catches my eye. There doesn't appear to be any fencing or signs along this stretch. Maybe high ground will help. I veer off into the meadow, tapping my feet to alert any snakes to my presence, and keeping my ears pricked for rattling, ticking, or growling. With a bit of scrambling, I manage to get to the top. I look back the way I came. The wreck of my car is out of sight, though it can't be more than a few miles away. Nothing ahead of me as far as I can see either. Damn, keep going blindly forward, I guess. I slowly begin to lower myself and find, feet dangling some distance from the ground, that it takes far more effort to dismount from my lookout than it did to scale it. This would be the exact moment a car would pass, I think pessimistically as I fumble for a foothold. You're kidding. Sure enough, I crane my neck, catching sight of a car just past me up the road. Wait! I unceremoniously drop to my feet, flinching at the impact but managing to keep upright. Racing back to the road, I stumble over the tufts of grass and end up sprawled on my stomach. My knee twinges uncomfortably as I jump back to my feet, but I pay it no attention in my desperate bid to catch up to the car, pushing myself to go faster. I'm losing them. Please, please. I slow as hopelessness begins to weigh me down. My breath is coming in ragged gasps, and I finally stop, gripping my legs as sweat stings my eyes and rolls down my face. A few tears of pain and frustration might follow for good measure. I can't tell. The now distant car pauses. Did they see me? No, they're turning. I limp along again as swiftly as I can manage. Even if I can't catch up, turning means there's something in that direction, right? I squint ahead, keeping the car in my view as best I can. My knee is throbbing. Have they stopped? I pick up the pace, and distantly I see a figure emerge from the car, looking around for a moment or two before proceeding on foot away from the main road. Strange. Noting that the figure is cutting across the field, I strike off the road again towards him, disregarding another of the military signs in my pursuit. Here's hoping they aren't too serious about the bombs. His back is to me, but I'm near enough he might hear if I shout. Hey! My voice is swallowed by the wind, so I push on. I've almost caught up. I can't catch my breath to shout. My hope the road leads to a house or other settlement withers, as I realize it doesn't appear to have been in use for decades. There are deep, irregular grooves and cracks left by water erosion, and it's overgrown with dandelions and grass. So where exactly is he going? Almost caught up, just a step or two more. What? Hello? The person in front of me can't have vanished into thin air. Impossible. Hello? Nobody answers. The hair on the back of my neck and arms prickles up. I glance behind me. I can see the car parked amongst the shrubs and an anonymous black sedan. I hesitate, uncertain. Ghosts don't drive cars. Where the hell did he go? Just as I take a step forward, there's a sharp pop like a firecracker and a hot, singing gust to the right of my ear. Bark explodes outwards from the tree beside me. I freeze. Someone just shot at me. Someone just shot at me? My body is suddenly awash with adrenaline. I have to move. I have to get away. But where? So what are we going to do? Take cover behind the trees or drop to the ground? I feel like just dropping to the ground is going to get me shot. So let's take cover behind the trees. Fear of the unseen sniper overrides my fear of the disappearing motorist, and I hurl myself between the trees. For a moment, it feels like time slows as I'm airborne, held aloft by the wind, fight or flight. Then the moment passes and I hit the ground hard. The bark bursting outward means the shooter is from the side near the main road. I swiftly roll to the right, putting the bulk of a stout oak tree between myself and the road. The dirt where I first landed blooms upward with a muted thump. Tucking my legs against my chest, I wrap my arms across my knees and pull myself into as small a ball as possible. The dirt erupts once more, about a foot to the left of the first shot, sending a rock flying that clips my cheek. I cry out in pain before clapping a hand over my own mouth as though I might give away my location further. Silence, apart from the wind. Are they waiting for me to move? The temporary clarity I had riding the burst of adrenaline was rapidly evaporating, leaving me terrified and shaking without any idea what to do. This is not how I want to die. I don't want to die. Desperately swallowing rising hysteria, I force myself to look up and evaluate my surroundings. The hysteria subsides, replaced instead by bafflement. What? Chapter 1. The road on this side of the trees is in good repair, though still unpaved. A well-packed dirt track instead of a nearly feral path. The summer remnants of wildflowers generously dot the borders as the road leads to the edge of a small town, hazy in the afternoon heat. A town I'd swear wasn't there before. I rub my eyes with the back of a hand, in the process smearing a trickle of blood seeping from the cut of my cheek. It's definitely there. And so is... What? Who are... No. No. He takes a quick step in my direction. I have to warn him. Maybe he can get help. Don't come near. There's a shooter. Fear makes my voice brittle and uneven. The stranger obediently halts, setting down a device of some kind and very slowly raising his hands. His face is perfectly still, except for watchful, intense eyes. I have to make him understand. I was shot at just now. Someone with a gun is shooting at me, and I don't know why. You need to get to safety. Run, and please call for help. I'm afraid to move. The hands lower, but he makes no other move, continuing to stare in silence. Hey! He starts shaking himself with a snarl. What the hell are you doing? I blink up at him. I'm sorry? I asked, what the hell do you think you're doing? What the hell do I think I'm doing? Okay, what do we say? Trying to save your life, idiot. Trying to survive? I don't know. Trying to survive seems, this seems the most honest. Far from sympathetic, he looks annoyed. Excellent work. His tone is bitingly sarcastic. I'm now terrified and furious. Glad to have your approval. If you aren't going to help, at least get to cover. He hesitates, obviously struggling with his own temper. When they first shot at you, was it this side of the trees or the other? His voice is strained, as though he's stretching out his patience well beyond its usual parameters. The other side, what does it matter? He ignores my question. So, to avoid the shooting, you hid behind the tree on this side. It certainly would have done any good to hide on the same side as the shooter, so... He sighs again, closing his eyes. Right, of course. He murmurs a string of invectives under his breath. What was that? Never mind. What are you doing out here? Besides getting shot at, I was in a wreck. I was just trying to find help. He snorts dismissively. You're in the middle of nowhere? He gestures broadly at empty meadow and hills, ignoring the town behind him. I clench my teeth. My phone is out of service. I saw your car. You look like you might be helpful, from a distance anyway. The stranger looks away. I'm sorry to have disappointed you. His face is grim, but I don't feel his anger is directed at me anymore. You can move. They can't shoot at you now. I don't budge. How do you figure? Because I'm on the right side of the trees? Didn't stop them from shooting before. He shrugs. They can't see you. They might have been reckless and superlatively stupid enough to shoot blindly while they thought they knew where you'd be, but they'll have given up by now, if they weren't merely warning shots to begin with. I gape at him, my stomach dropping. They can't... Do you know who was shooting then? Is that why you aren't afraid? The stranger looks taken aback, scowling harder. I don't know specifically who is doing the shooting. Although... Are you with them? He blinks at me. With them? I suppose that technically we could be considered... no. Not by any choice on my part. In any case, though, they can't harm you from here. Even if I did believe him, the muscles in my legs have fully seized up, either from fear or my unexpected sprint on a twisted knee. I simply sit still, sizing him up, my pulse pounding in my ears. For a time, he returns stare for stare, but as the silence stretches, he becomes visibly uncomfortable. What? I said you can get up, they can't harm you. I'm smart enough not to jump back into the line of fire based only... I went backwards, sorry about that. They can't harm you. I'm smart enough not to jump back into the line of fire based only on the assurances of a stranger who admits to knowing the gunman. Why should I trust you? He rolls his eyes irritably, scowling again. If only you had kept that intelligent just trust in your mind 5 minutes ago, this wouldn't be... no. Abruptly, the anger leaves him, his shoulders slumping. He rakes an unsteady hand through his hair. No? He shakes his head once. This is no one's fault but mine. No matter how stupid or thoughtless, this is my own mess. It's my fault, you're... Damn it! He begins pacing. I swallow, my annoyance and fear struggling for supremacy within me. What do you mean it's your... Quiet, please. I'm trying to think. Don't strain yourself. After all, that was pretty snarky from our MC here. After a long moment glaring at his feet, he abruptly turns to me again, eyes brilliant and frighteningly intense. Best not to overcomplicate matters. My name is Dr. No, never mind. You don't need to know who I am. You just need to come with me right now. No longer certain whether the greater threat is behind me or before me, I force myself upright and onto my feet, hissing at the pain in my knee and leaning heavily against the tree at my back. Do you need help? His voice is dry, devoid of sympathy, but he extends a hand. I can manage. Why should I go with you, though, when I know there's someone with a gun aimed at me? Stranded seems better than dead at the moment. His brows contract sharply, arm dropping back to his side. You have no choice in the matter. You come with me, or... He lets the word dangle ominously. Despite my still elevated pulse, I glare back at him, unimpressed. Or what? Got something worse than being shot at? His anger flares. As a matter of fact, yes. Come with me now, please. Otherwise, I can't guarantee you'll ever go home. My throat constricts, but I lift my chin, refusing to flinch. What do you mean by that? My voice comes out weaker than I hoped, but he merely scowls in response. Just what I said. Whether your presence here is truly innocent or not, surely you have... Is that a threat? He appears genuinely surprised. What? No, merely the truth. Come with me and I'll see to it that no harm comes to you. If I can. If? He shifts uncomfortably. I can't guarantee anything, but your safety is probable. Almost certain, as long as no one loses their head. I can't deal in absolutes, but I'd give it a good, strong chance. Otherwise, though, you're trapped. You don't get to go home. Ever, probably. He lets out an exasperated laugh. I suppose that does sound like a threat. After another drawn-out pause, he shrugs and takes a step in my direction. Smiling, he looks almost normal, borderline pleasant even. The smile fades. I'm sorry. This isn't funny. He shrugs again, looking away. Blood thrumming, I continue, standing frozen in place. I weigh my options. Go with him or run away. He seems absolutely untrustworthy. I'm not going with him. I'm running away. How dare you threaten me? I'm running. With a gunman still hidden somewhere behind me, the town seems an obvious, even providential choice. Towns have people in them. People who likely frown on a man taking an innocent passerby away to cook and eat them. People are likewise inclined to disapprove of even complete strangers being summarily shot in the wilderness. I realize that, contrary to many late-night cynical declarations, I rather like people. A lot. I run. Indistinctly, I hear him voice something in surprise, but I don't stop. I can't. The same fear that had me frozen in place before has now discovered an outlet, and if I sprinted earlier trying to catch up to the disappearing, reappearing sociopath, adrenaline has me running away from him now so rapidly I am practically flying. My legs pound like pistons down the track. The wind breaks around me, roaring in my ears like an engine. And now I'm hitting something with all the force of a somewhat undersized but enthusiastic freight train. The something falls backwards, bracing me as we tumble. Whoa there! Scrambling back off my new friend's broad chest, I land on my posterior in the dirt. He sits up, blinking owlishly. There's a genuine sheriff's star pinned to the breast of his dusty uniform, which inspires a moment's tentative confidence that I may have at last found help. Then I catch a sight of a flask in the dirt beside him, and the confidence winks out almost as rapidly. I don't know you. Who are you? Answer him or remain silent. We've had some bad luck here, so we're gonna stay quiet, maybe back away from him a little bit. I weigh my mistrust against my need for aid, the balance leaving me wordless and uncertain. He waits with bleary patience, his brows knitting when it becomes clear I'm not going to reply. I ain't Emily Post exactly, but I do know that when a question is asked, it is only polite to respond. I eye him warily. I have the right to remain silent, don't I? He shrugs easily, looking faintly puzzled. Well, sure, but are you worried I might arrest you? Let me set your mind at ease then, stranger. Lack of coordination ain't against any laws that I know of, and if it were, I'd be locked up myself several times over. He grins companionably, clearly feeling any misunderstanding between us has now been addressed. That out of the way, can we proceed as friends? I don't mean to offend you, sir, and it really isn't personal, but I'm not especially friendly with strangers in general, I mean. I eye the flask and his thankfully still holstered gun, particularly cops who appear to be both armed and possibly inebriated. To my surprise, rather than looking downcast, his smile widens reassuringly. Ah, gotcha. Authority and the man ain't top of many lists nowadays, are they? Way out here, though, the job's more general-purpose handyman and a fourth Thursday bridge club when the old gals can't make up their numbers. I see. I continue to observe him closely, and his grin turns rueful. Also, best way I've found to make someone stop being a stranger is to call him a friend. So if I solemnly swear to you not to make too many loud noises or start arresting folks willy-nilly, can I get your name? Okay, I'm charmed. Sure, let's answer now. My name is, let's see, it is of course Mr. Shins. Preferred pronouns. I'm a he, him. I'm Mr. Shins. Some tension goes out of his shoulders and he nods encouragingly. Thank you for doing me the honor. I appreciate the gesture of goodwill. Helps put to rest any fear you might be here with the intent to cause trouble. There's a glint of watchfulness in his eyes despite his bland tone, and I shake my head firmly. I'm not. Without giving away any reaction he might have had to this assurance, he extends a hand politely as though we aren't sitting in the dirt. Friends then, Mr. Shins. Sheriff John Forster at your service. I shake his hand. Hello, Sheriff John. Is that your flask? Letting go of my hand, he reaches out for it, though his eyes don't leave my face. It is. You with that doctor fella, the one the Army sent. Army? I guess there is a base nearby after all. The jackass in the suit. For a moment, his face lights up, eyes twinkling with knowing camaraderie. Clearly a fan. I see you've made his acquaintance. Yep, not with him, though. Not. Oh, whoops. Can I back up there? How do we back up? I missed that part. If I go back. Oh. Not with him, though. Not. Definitely not. Right, got it. Army Doc is not your friend and is unlikely to become so in this life, the next, or any thereafter. But if I may ask, what brings you here then? I clear my throat, marshaling my thoughts. I'm here because I wrecked my car, got shot at, and was threatened by a stranger. You're the sheriff. Can I make a report? Is that how things work? He heaves a deep sigh. You can do whatever you like, but the reach of the law is a little overextended at the moment, so it'll have to go on the wait list. The wait list? He nods solemnly, taking a pull off the flask. Between the rich color in his cheeks and his slightly glassy eyes, I doubt it's the first of the day. Yes, sir. You're really an officer of the law with a wait list for reports? Far from appearing affronted or concerned, he looks wryly amused. Afraid so. See, we're a small town, as you may have noticed, and the law is officially represented by yours truly and no one else. Times being what they are, we've temporarily divvied up reports as such, matters that relate to the imminent apocalypse and somewhat more trivial affairs that can be waitlisted. Apocalypse? My obvious and growing frustration only draws a charming, sympathetic grin in response. Now keep your shirt on. Should we survive the aforementioned apocalypse, I'll get to them in due course. Most likely, anyway. So, murder. Did the army doctor murder you? I can't tell if he's asking sincerely or not. I shake my head. Did he try to murder you? I consider the question. He drinks from the flask again, his face relaxing when I don't immediately reply. Hypothetical murders are waitlisted. With the adrenaline powering my flight now sapped from my system, I'm feeling limp and overwhelmed, the fear stifled painfully inside my chest and building pressure. I try directing it outward again, funneling it towards anger. What kind of officer are you? He considers this ruminatively before answering. I'm the sheriff. You're drinking on the job. He shrugs apologetically. So would you? Yeah, at my job. You're the sheriff. He shrugs again. I'm the drunk sheriff then, I suppose. I don't have a response. He eyes me curiously. You ain't from here. Obviously. He nods agreeably. Obviously. How'd you get here, though, if you don't mind my asking? Well, my car broke down just a few miles away. He clicks his tongue sympathetically. Despite his obvious intoxication and unrelenting, bland friendliness, there's something arrested in his voice, there's something arrested in his otherwise vacant eyes. I get the needling sense he's observing me more closely than his outward appearance, still sprawled in the dirt, flask in hand, would suggest. And again, I've always had a vivid imagination. And so you came here, looking for help? Yes, my phone is out of service. His expression is utterly blank. I pull out my phone. I turn it to show him, only to find he's now sitting bolt upright, easing a gun from the holster on his hip. All right then, you military? I instantly drop the phone and put my hands up, though he isn't pointing the gun at me or anything in particular. His hand is shaking ever so slightly, but his voice remains a lazy, friendly drawl, his eyes steadily fixed on me. No? The sheriff clambers slowly to his feet. Soviet. What? His hand is no longer shaking. The gun is pointed at the ground, but his entire body is tense, coiled, and ready for action. You're off the wait list. Congratulations. Where are you from? Who sent you? How? I don't... My voice trails off, uncertain. His face is pale, but gives no hint of serious impairment, and despite the strange hysteria of his reaction, I wonder suddenly if I misjudged his intelligence. I can't tell if he's delusional or if I'm missing something important. Are you even from here? That is, you from space or delusional? What? I mean, I'm starting to feel like it's a Twilight Zone, but you're telling me you turning up is more than enough. But what is that? He points the gun at my phone, laying in the dirt beside me. I look at his face, wondering if he's serious. He's serious. It's my phone. He shakes his head, obviously skeptical. Funniest telephone I ever seen. Look, I might be from the city, but I didn't take a road trip to the 1800s. What's your issue? Intent, slate-gray eyes search my face for an uncomfortable moment, expression unreadable. Slowly, he reaches down to pick up my cell, acting as though it might bite. Holding it gingerly in one hand, gun still drawn in the other, he jerks his chin in the direction I came from. Let's go. Where? Back to your car. Let's go back to your car if we can. What? I need to find out something. You do too, maybe. So I'm escorting you back to your car. Ain't I a gentleman? Let's go. Holstering his gun, he reaches out to pull me to my feet. I take his hand nervously and am pulled up without fuss. He waits as I brush the dust from my jeans, then surprises me by returning the phone. I pocket it. It's a bit of a hike. He looks nonplussed, simply waiting patiently for me to start walking. He offers a shoulder upon seeing my limp, which I shrug off. Remembering why I ran into him in the first place, I halt again almost immediately. What about that guy? Right, what did our friend do to spook you? Apart from being a creep? I pause. Apart from being a creep in a general way, yep. He tried to force me to go with him. His expression doesn't change. When I refused, he said I was trapped. He told me I'd never go home. The corner of the sheriff's mouth twitches, but he otherwise appears made of stone. And you feel he was saying this as a threat? What kind of thing is that to say to someone? His flask emerges from his pocket and he takes another swig, then hands it to me. I accept it reflexively. Okay, do we drink from the flask, then hand it back? Hand it back without drinking? Or dump it on the ground? That's brutal. Let's drink from it. Why not? What do we got to lose? Whiskey. Not good whiskey either. He nods approvingly, taking another drink himself. It occurs to me that I've left out some important information. Also, I was shot at. That surprises him. I'll be. He shot at you. No, he didn't. I'm afraid I'm not following. Is this another hypothetical murder? No, I was actually shot at 3-4 times. I never saw who did it. I made it to cover and I saw him, the army doctor, I guess, and I tried to warn him, but for some reason he wasn't worried about it. Isn't that suspicious? He doesn't reply. In fact, he told me they couldn't hit me all because of something about the trees. Hard to hit something that's behind a tree. The suggestion wasn't that the trees obscured me from view, was it? I try to remember exactly what the stranger had said. I don't think he meant it that way. He said they couldn't see me past the trees. Not being able to see through a tree does make it hard to hit something that is behind said tree. His statement is aggravatingly reasonable, but I still don't think it's what he meant. And I don't think the sheriff thinks it either, no matter what he's saying. It felt like he was referring to the trees as a kind of, I don't know, wall, a boundary. Silence as we continue walking. If he really thought it was a silly idea that I'm making things up, he'd tell me. He'd waitlist it. Well, we come to a stop. The trees I referred to are now only a few feet away. The stranger is nowhere in sight. The late afternoon is buzzing with insects, but no gunfire. What I can see of the landscape beyond is the same repeating hills and grass, nothing remarkable. The sheriff gives me a quizzical look. Guess I'll go first. If I get shot on the other side of those trees, tell my sister I want to be buried in the blue suit. My stomach lurches. No hypothetical murders, remember? He grins. Gotcha. Don't you worry. I don't think I'm liable to be at risk. I hesitate a moment, then blurt out a ridiculous concern. Full disclosure, you might disappear or something. He looks back at me, not unreasonably confused. Or something? I nod. I thought the guy from earlier, I was trying to catch up to him to ask for help, and I thought he simply vanished. Then he reappeared. I couldn't even see the town at first. Then it was suddenly there. I take a steadying breath. I don't know. Something's weird about this area. The sheriff's expression is momentarily stripped of all emotion. Then he forces a wan smile. Got that right. But don't fret yourself. I can't explain properly just now, but I will say this. If I disappear on the other side of those trees, it's potentially a very good thing. For you and me and everyone else in the whole damn town. In fact, I hope to God I do disappear. I'll come back for you all too, if so. Well, I can't quite process what his cryptic speech means, delivered as it is with bleary heroism. It doesn't seem like he wants to die. Not if he gets shot. He draws his gun from its holster again. Right, good point. Well, here goes. He stalks up to the two big trees, inhales deeply, and steps between them. Abruptly, he's facing me again. I didn't even see him turn. Damn. His face crestfallen. He drops the gun back into its holster and pulls out the flask. Finding it empty, he jams it back into his pocket, then drags himself past me on the road, leading towards town. Hey, wait! He doesn't even pause. Curious and confused by what I just witnessed, I look back towards the trees. What happened anyway? Rather than trying to catch up to the sheriff, I take a few steps along the path. Gingerly, ready to jump back behind cover at a moment's notice, I step forward between the trees. Instantly, I'm on the path facing the town again, as though it were the other side. I turn around, focusing my full attention on the space between the trees. I step between them less cautiously. find unfacing town. Through the looking glass. Turning, I frantically launch myself between the trees, leaping forward and hoping the shooter on the other side has long since gone home. Eventually, I check my phone. 27 minutes have passed. Despite alternating my approach, I am unable to pass between the trees. Nor am I able to circumvent the trees. I am wholly unable to move beyond the point through which I passed earlier. It would appear I am, indeed, trapped. Chapter 2. That rat bast... You! Hey! I raised my head from where I'd been resting it on my arms, startled to be suddenly addressed by a strident voice, and more startled to be nudged none too gently in the shoulder by the toe of a serviceable work boot. You up? I stand, eyeing the newcomer warily. She looks close to me in age, but she is radiating a sense of her own authority like a beacon. She also apparently believes her authority extends to me. I'm up. The woman continues, scowling. I was told I might find a stranger parked here. Are you done sulking and cursing your fate? We need to get you to town and see what's to be done with you. What? She shifts her weight impatiently from one foot to the other. I asked you if you're done sulking yet. There's work to do. I was not sulking. She shrugs, the quick rise and fall of her shoulders partially disguised by the oversized flannels she's wearing. Suit yourself, but it looked like it to me. Okay, we could say, okay, fine, I was sulking. I was thinking. I was just resting my eyes. No, we're weirdly trapped in the twilight zone. I think we were sulking. Okay, fine, I was sulking. I think I'm entitled under the circumstances. I don't really understand what's going on, but I can tell that much. She stops frowning, obviously making an effort to appear more sympathetic. Sure, I didn't intend to suggest otherwise. But it will do you more good to take action than to sit here fretting, so let's go. I don't know the cause for the barrier. We've had theories. Oh? She nods earnestly. Almost as many theories as people in the town. Mass hysteria or hypnosis seem the most plausible to me, but with you, a newcomer, and a stranger entering and suffering the same as the rest of us? Mass hypnosis seem the most plausible to you? My skepticism doesn't at all impact her self-assurance. She begins ticking off her reasoning on her fingers. No physical barrier we can touch or see. Everyone is affected. Running up against the boundary causes people to rotate backwards toward town, even when driving. Also look. She points to the empty meadow on her right, framed by miles of overlapping hills the color of toast. Best guess, it's a mirage or something like it. There's supposed to be a huge granite outcropping in that field shaped like a you-know-what. No, what? She wrinkles her nose but decides against responding. Point is, you can't see it, right? Or the 1,000-year tree that's a mile out on the hill behind town to the east. It's not 1,000 years old, by the way, maybe close to 300 though. I see. She shakes her head, squinting at the empty field again. You can't see, that's the point. It's like your brain is just filling in what ought to be there or something. An optical illusion, until you get close enough to the barrier that it just mirrors the way you came. Reason dictates then it's likely to be a mass delusion of some kind, and since it hit us all after the event, it would figure something or someone must have strongly suggested it to everyone at that time. It seems sound enough as a theory. She tilts her head, considering the matter complacently, then scowls again. It's less far-fetched than the notion we're living in an alien terrarium anyway. That's a theory? She nods, looking irritated. My brothers. I smile in spite of myself. Ah, little brother? How old is he? Mine went through a phase when she shakes her head, looking more irritated. No, my older brother, he's 30. Come on, we can talk as we walk. We start walking towards the town. You're limping slightly. I look down. I was in an accident, and then I tweaked my knee at some point. It hurts. She waves a hand briskly. Show me. With difficulty, I roll up the leg of my jeans, exposing my knee. She gives it a cursory glance. You're fine. No bruising, very little swelling, and if it were dislocated, you wouldn't be able to stand on it, let alone walk. With this terse pronouncement, she dismisses my injury, continuing on. Fixing my jeans, I follow behind. Is it far, wherever we're going, I mean? Not particularly. If the limp is bothering me, I can slow down, I suppose. Her pace does not noticeably diminish. I'm Mr. Shins, by the way. She stops walking again, eyeing me briefly. That was probably rude of me. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Shins. I'm Mary Beth Forster. I debate for a moment whether or not to extend a hand to shake, but my attention is instead arrested by something else I hadn't noticed before. Are you carrying... is that a sword? She looks at the weapon in her hand. Yes, or more specifically, it's a saber. Old, military, been in my family for a few generations. I have to see the saber, so I'm going to check this here. Yep, she's holding a saber. Okay. Her eyes narrow critically. Probably dull. I should fix that. I find myself nodding inanely. Do you, take it out often? She looks at me incredulously. Do you carry a sword around with you? Why would I? Do I look like a member of the cavalry? I do not take the family heirloom saber out often, no. Got it, my mistake, right, but you have it out now because... She abandons eye contact guiltily. Ah, well, I have it with me because I was told there might be a stranger somewhere on the western road by the boundary and my brother wouldn't let me borrow his gun. I gape at her. So the saber is... You were going to stab me with that? Not unless I needed to. Because you couldn't shoot me instead, right? Honestly, John is an idiot, and he didn't tell me anything about you, just that there was a stranger by the boundary on the road to town. It only makes sense to be equipped with some form of self-protection, things being what they are. Stop being ridiculous, says the woman with the sword. Saber. Fine. She rolls her eyes and plows ahead towards the town. I get the funny feeling you don't trust me. Her brows raise. Why should I? You're a stranger. I'm effectively silenced. You being here is curious, but I don't distrust you necessarily. I have no opinion on the matter. Yet. From the little I've seen, it doesn't seem likely she refrains from forming opinions often. For a time, the only sound is her boots and my sneakers hitting the dirt. I fish for something to say. She seems far better informed of my circumstances than I am. It can't hurt to know more about the people I'm trapped with. You said your brother is John. John the Sheriff, John? John the... yes, that John. Do you get along well? She shrugs, her face guarded. He's my brother. I like him well enough. When you don't want to wring his neck. She laughs, the sound unexpectedly warm and bright. Fair. Do you have a brother? Do I ever? She glances at me curiously. Older or younger? Younger, much younger. He's from my mom's second marriage. Second marriage? Wow. Yeah, Robbie's dad is a real jerk, but Robbie's okay. That sounds difficult. I shrug. Is Robbie your only sibling? Yep. Is John yours? She shakes her head. For a moment, she seems to weigh responding, but after giving me a sidelong look, she shrugs off the hesitation. No, I'm the youngest of three. My folks had Judy before John, but she moved to the city a few years ago when she got married. There's poorly disguised envy in her voice. Are you and Judy close? She lets out a crack of laughter, but doesn't respond. I'm sorry. It's not like that. I like Judy. Everyone likes Judy, though. She's charming, she's beautiful. She does that thing where she seems so helpless and makes everyone do whatever she wants, whereas she cuts off, expression thoughtful. You're the brains? Her mouth twists into a muted smile. I don't know that. I can't figure her out. We're opposite poles. But you know that bit in Harvey? You can be oh so smart or oh so pleasant? I've decided as a trick, if you're really smart, you choose to be pleasant. It gets you further. She ruffles her hair impatiently. I, on the other hand, am not pleasant. I have no patience for pretending I'm not right when I know I am. it doesn't necessarily mean you aren't smart. She gives me a roguish grin in response. Thanks. I noticed you aren't trying to argue I'm pleasant, however. For a time, our strides fall in unison. Almost there. Come on. Bright Oak, huh? I glance up and down the length of the street, a smattering of aged and unpretentious buildings blooming out from a single intersection. What is happening? My dog is going crazy. Let me start that again. I glance up and down the length of the street, a smattering of aged and unpretentious buildings blooming out from a single intersection. There's a handful of beautifully restored old cars parked along the avenue, chrome gleaming in the fading sunlight. It has the unremarkable, mild Old West appearance shared by many small mountain towns in the state. Yes, scenic downtown Bright Oak, all 4 buildings. I laugh. Don't let local pride make you self-important. I've visited smaller towns. There are at least 7 buildings I can see from here. She chuckles, though I sense an underlying tension. Better brace yourself. The other 11 residents are probably already inside the Grange waiting to meet the new captive. She gestured towards another charming, venerable building just ahead, this one wider than its height, though not particularly grand in any proportion. A familiar figure slouches off the porch, weaving our direction with dogged determination. Mary Beth, with our new friend in tow, I see. In contrast to his earlier crestfallen attitude, the sheriff appears to be in great good humor now. Observing his younger sister closely, his head tilts to one side, the weight shifting him a step to the left. Drunk. Is that the sword that goes over the fireplace? Drunk, you bastard, you worse than useless bastard. Drink some coffee. Yes, it's the Spanish-American War saber that belonged to great-great-uncle Alfie. John holds up an enamel mug, though whether the gesture is meant to appease his furious sister or toast her, I can't tell. I thought it looked familiar. He turns to me, clearly pleased. I can never keep the great straight. Ha, great straight. If only that were the only thing you had trouble keeping straight. Let's go in, Mr. Shins. John, you go soak your head. You're an embarrassment to decency. Someday, they're going to write my life story, and that'll be the title. Sheriff John Forrester, man of the law, embarrassment to decency. Don't pretend to be an idiot, John. Really, leaving a stranger on the road, lost and confused, just so you can hurry on home and tie one on? Clumsily sidestepping the tip of the ancestral blade, which is wavering dangerously as Mary Beth uses it to punctuate her diatribe, he eases up to his sister, carefully removing the hilt from her grasp. Weapon secured, he then turns to me, ignoring the lecture which has progressed without pause. She's awfully mad, can you tell? I can always tell when she's seriously bent out of shape because it's John this, John that, John the bastard. Did you see that movie? Rotten. John. There she goes. Shall we head inside and meet the town? He pivots, not waiting for a response, and looks around before hitting upon a planter bristling with daisies as the best place to stash Uncle Alfie's saber. This accomplished, he ducks back through the oversized doors to the Grange. We can hear him hailing someone just inside. Mary Beth lets out a muted growl, fists clenched at her sides. That man. Come on. She stomps after him. I begin to follow when a figure coalesces out of the shadows of the building. You. We need to talk. Come inside already. In my capacity as sheriff, I can assure you we don't bite. Not on first acquaintance, anyway. That's obnoxious. What are you suggesting? Just a minute. I revert my attention back, but the stranger is gone again. I scan the length of the building, but can't see him. I thought you said we need to talk. I intend the question as a demand, a challenge, but my voice betrays me, emerging just above a whisper. Even if he does hear, no reply comes. The sun has begun to dip behind the hills, but the evening air is stiflingly hot. Glaring up and down the quiet, old-fashioned street a final time, I step into the cool of the Grange. My eyes adjust to the change in light quickly, but I am surprised by how few people are in the room. I lean towards Mary Beth. Wow, you weren't kidding. Her eyes shift in my direction, puzzled. Then she looks around the room. Oh, no, this is just everyone in the area that John was able to flag down on short notice. The whole town isn't trapped either, just everyone that was downtown proper or nearby when the event occurred. There's 21, 22 of us total. 23 now, I guess. The event? She's moved away now, helping an older woman who is having difficulty navigating the collection of folding chairs spread out around the room. Sheriff John seems to be arranging the chairs to form a rough circle, inviting the clumps of assembled individuals to seat themselves and being entirely ignored. I catch the eye of a striking woman across the room, and she smiles kindly before turning away to address Mary Beth. Looking around, I can't help observing a number of suspicious glances thrown my direction. Though the majority of people present merely huddle together and continue whispering, a few are openly staring at me. No one else smiles. Moreover, the atmosphere is bordering on hostile. Falling back a step, I try to covertly scan the room for potential exits. There's a very tall, lanky figure propped against the wall nearest the door. He is observing me with wary curiosity, but his eyes seem kind. Might be sympathetic. Everyone else here is dressed super conservatively, but he's wearing... I'm not sure what he's wearing. I bet most of the time he's the one being stared at, though. His gaze drops as soon as he realizes I've noticed him, and I move a little closer. Seems like a tough crowd. He starts, eyes shifting as though to confirm I'm not speaking to someone else. I smile encouragingly, and he straightens, adjusting his glasses and grimacing slightly at the small assembly. Yes, though they're not always like this. One corner of his mouth pulls upward wryly, and he pitches his soft voice lower still. Sometimes they're far worse. Try not to let it bother you. It isn't personal. I'm not imagining that I'm the focus, though. He shakes his head once. No, you're an unknown, and you're here. Bright Oak must be a very small town. He gives me a quizzical look, but lets the statement stand. Indeed. I overheard your question. You don't know about the event, then? No, what event? What event? It sounded as if the streets were running and then the streets stood still. Doesn't ring a bell? Should it? His eyes narrow thoughtfully. I suppose that answers the question of whether this is a localized disaster, if nothing else. We refer to the incident precipitating our current state as the event. As nothing ever happens in Bright Oak, the title is clear enough among locals, but I can see how an outsider might find it puzzling. I see. Is there an explanation yet, then? Is the world in an uproar over us? His tone is light, but doesn't quite succeed in concealing his nervous tension. He seems unable to stop fidgeting, and behind the thick-framed glasses, his gaze is painfully intent. Captivity has not been kind to these people, but I don't have any more answers than they do. If there's an explanation, I don't know it either. I've never even heard of Bright Oak before. The stranger appears first shocked, then bitterly amused by my response, eyes glinting. What times we live in. All the same, it's disappointing to hear. The detached amusement drains slowly from his expression. Not with a bang, but a whimper. Call me selfish, but given the circumstances, I'd really rather we were a headline than an afterthought. Headlines are harder to cover up and forget. There's nothing to say in response to this murmured remark. After a short pause, his mouth opens to speak again, but meeting my eyes, he instead breaks into another crooked smile, apologetic and sad in equal parts. No better than the rest of the mob, am I? I don't mean to give you the third degree. I'm sorry I'm not any help. Sparrow, glad you're here. Could always use more abstract thinking. Care to have a seat so we can get this show on the road? Lewis, I see you've met Mr. Shins. Not exactly. I'm Mr. Shins. The stranger extends a hand and I grip it. Mr. Shins, I'm Sparrow. Pleased to meet you. Sparrow? His name is Lewis. He wants to be a bird, let him be a bird. Doesn't hurt anyone. Sparrow Lewis gives me a lopsided, self-deprecating grin. Call me whichever you'd like, I suppose. Everyone else certainly does. Well, he wants to be called Sparrow. Let him be a bird. If he wants to be a bird. The smile reaches his eyes for the first time. I wish it were under better circumstances. But you're certain you haven't heard anything about us? The question seems to escape him unbidden, and his expression shudders abruptly. Sheriff John takes a quick breath. Let's get the meeting going if you're asking heavy questions, Sparrow. Don't want him to have to reply to the same question more than once if we can help it. Sparrow nods, his mouth set in a grim line. Without warning, Mary Beth grabs my arm and leads me to a chair before seating the rest of the room with similarly brutal efficiency. John watches Mary Beth's crowd management fondly, settling into a chair beside me. Ain't she something? Like watching Patton in action. He grins as she ruthlessly herds a small group away from the corner. Maybe a border collie. Sparrow chuckles at this, shaking off his gloom and sitting down on the chair to my right with a deliberately casual air. A sharp, frustrated look from Mary Beth across the room suggests she intended to box me in herself, but Sparrow merely smiles vaguely in return, disregarding her scowl. I've always thought her more like a cat surrounded by pigeons. She doesn't act with bad intent, she just instinctually can't help threatening to eat anyone weaker than her, which of course is nearly everyone. Pigeons, eh? Not sparrows? Despite having likened his sister to a border collie himself, there's a hint of protective menace in the sheriff's voice, though his expression remains perfectly genial. Sparrow holds his palms up in quick surrender. Pigeons, sparrows, finches, whatever you like. I know I'm weaker than her. She'd definitely eat me. Well, she probably would. He seems satisfied, slouching back into his chair. What would I do? You'd eat Sparrow if he were a cat. What? Absolutely not. All that hair would make Lewis too stringy. Also, our 10-year reunion is coming up, and I would die if I had to say I ate him of all people. It would be so embarrassing. Everyone would tell me I could have done better. You ate Lewis? Could you have at least made a push to eat Mark Herman instead? What? Mark? He was so handsome, wasn't he? I heard he went to seed as soon as he stopped playing sports in college, though. Exactly, but you'd still eat him instead of Lewis, right? What? Surely we aren't at that point yet. Also, Lewis, I was going to sit there. But now that I know I'm in no danger from you, I'm feeling very brave. I will hold this chair. It is my chair. She scowls again, plunking down on the seat to the other side of her brother. Stupid. Venga, perhaps we should start. Sheriff John, as you called us from our dinner? The musical voice is raised no louder than it needs to be to carry across the room, but it has the effect of silencing all chatter. John clears his throat loudly. Pardon, Patty. Let's call this meeting to order, shall we? Ladies and gents, I know I pulled this little get-together earlier than originally scheduled, but as you can see, we've a bit of a situation. He gestures to me grandiloquently. As the increasingly awkward pause draws out, I realize he's waiting for me to speak. Hello, I'm Mr. Shins. Are you calling me a situation? Or we don't say anything. Well, he's waiting for me to say something. Hello, I'm Mr. Shins. The sheriff nods, dropping a hand to my shoulder. It would appear that Mr. Shins, while newly arrived here in town, is just as stuck as we are. Not that you hung around to find out, of course. A murmur chases around the room before dying out rapidly. The sheriff raises his voice. The sheriff raises his voice, trying to regain focus. Seems Mr. Shins encountered some trouble and was looking for help when he stumbled up the western road entirely by accident. Now, Mr. Shins, what brought you out to these remote parts, if I may ask? There was a brush fire on the interstate and my GPS rerouted me this way, but I took a wrong turn and momentary silence. Your GPS? Yes, on my phone. I lost reception at some point, so I'm not sure if it might have directed me elsewhere. It's never worked quite right. The sheriff interjects hurriedly, motioning for me to let this pass. Right, that telephone of yours. Let's leave it aside for the moment. So, you were on your way up the interstate when you were sent this way to avoid a brush fire? Yes. And your car broke down? I swerved to avoid a rabbit in the road and I hit a sharp rock. The wheel's broken. He nods. I get the surprising sense that despite the very public interrogation, he's on my side and would like the rest of the crowd to join him there. And then I walked up the road until I saw the person you call a doctor, and I tried to catch up to ask for help. The young woman interested in Mark Herman pipes up again, tittering nervously. What? You mean Mary Beth? No, he don't mean my sister. He means the other strangers snooping around town. Dr. Lee. Right, and then I was shot at. Another shocked murmur. You poor thing. Shot at, are you sure? I touched the scratch on my cheek. I'm sure. 2, 3 times. I made it to cover, and the guy, the army doctor, Dr. Lee, I guess, said the shooter wouldn't be able to see me past the trees. And then he said I'd never go home. I swallowed the words. And then I ran into Sheriff John here. Literally. How did you come to be here, though? Don't they have it closed off? I guess there were military signs here and there, but Hitchin, the base is up the road a bit. Weren't you at least somewhat afraid to be in this area? I look at Sparrow, trying to puzzle out what he is refusing to ask directly. Okay, do you mean because it's so remote? A little, I guess. A lot once the car wrecked. Because it's remote. Agitated chatter begins to build around me, but Sheriff John jumps in before I can answer, voice even and calm. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll do best to keep taking easy steps. The striking woman nods approvingly, and the noise dies back down. Okay, Mr. Shins, did anything noteworthy occur in the country, say, 4 weeks ago? Seeing the puzzled look on my face, he continues. Did you ever hear the name of Bright Oak before today? I shake my head slowly. On the other side of John, Mary Beth is staring at me incredulously, and Sparrow's gaze drops to where he is clasping and unclasping his hands in his lap. Right then, news is normal? As normal as news is, yeah. And now, could you please bring that telephone of yours out where everyone can see it? Slowly. I hesitate, but do as he asks. You could hear a pin drop in the room. Can you make it light up again? I obligingly tap the screen. The chair shoots out from behind Sparrow as he jumps to his feet along with half the room. One man urgently hustles a woman out the door, keeping as far away from me as they can. Whoa, you didn't show me that earlier. May I hold it? No, you may not. He returns his focus to the room at large, which is loud with animated half-whispers. Mr. Shin says this is a telephone. Because it is a telephone and a computer, I guess. It's a smartphone. It's not exactly cutting-edge technology, or at least mine isn't. I mean, they're common, right? Or at least they usually are. It can't be a telephone. There aren't any wires. Where'd you get it? Mary Beth is aglow with fascination, held back from my phone only by the efforts of her brother, who is simultaneously trying to get the room back to a manageable level. 3 more people filter out of the building, eyes wide and frightened. The remaining groups are keeping a wary distance, the striking woman speaking urgently to the couple nearest to her before turning a pointed look to John. The sheriff raises his voice to be heard. He claims no connection to either the Soviets or the U.S. government. This gadget ain't military. I shake my head. No, it's just a personal cell phone. He's not an alien, John. Who sent you? Where are you from? The din of questions is overwhelming and seemingly ridiculous. It's a phone, a very mediocre phone at that. Did I land in the middle of a cult? What year is it? People are talking over Sparrow's soft voice, but both the sheriff and Mary Beth seem suddenly arrested, waiting for my reply. 2012. You're kidding. Be serious. Well, I'll be. He's kidding. Sparrow sits back down beside me, staring straight ahead. Damn. The hair on my arms is prickling. A few subtle discrepancies and quirks I've disregarded in the midst of larger obvious problems are starting to nag at me. Stop. There's no way. It's ridiculous.
Mary Beth, we've been trapped in town 4 weeks by an invisible barrier. What is worth considering that isn't by any other yardstick ridiculous? The scant few cars parked along the street, I assume, belong to a hobby club. Mr. Shins, who is the current president of the United States of America? Barack Obama. The clothes, men in suits, women, apart from Mary Beth, in dresses. Obama? Another Irishman? Barack being obviously Celtic in origin. A handful of men smoking in the back of the room, indoors, in California. I don't know, Llewellyn. It could be. Don't make provincial assumptions, Mary Elizabeth. Sparrow's thick-framed hipster glasses. Well, I suppose it don't matter so long as he's American. He a Democrat or GOP? The uproar following my simple recitation of 2 facts anyone and everyone in town should already know. I have to ask. So, what year do you all think it is? I'm embarrassed, and more than that, I'm afraid, so the question is less casual and more desperate than I meant it for it to sound. No one answers right away. A deep sigh cuts through the silence. What a mess. Since these, a sweep of her arm encompasses the trio around me, seem to have talked themselves all out of words, I will speak. Mr. Shins, I am Patricia Gutierrez. Patty, please, make yourself comfortable. Her voice, though warm and kind, is so carefully controlled, I can almost hear it creak from strain. I lean back in my chair obediently, mouth dry. She gives a sympathetic smile that, if possible, frightens me still more. Good. I am sorry to tell you, Mr. Shins, this is not 2012, but 1968, and she takes a deep breath, a very faint tremor coming through and immediately suppressed. I do not know how to send you home. We are probably all going to be here a little while. Chapter 3. It feels like a joke. It must be. But even the impossible is seeming likelier now than the chance the town, the people, the shooting, and the apparent trap closed around me are all merely an elaborate setup. Whatever it is, though, it feels like I'm the punchline. To my supreme embarrassment, I can feel tears forming. Not quiet, stoic sniffles either, but messy, hysterical crying I can barely hold back. I swallow hard, gripping my hands together tightly enough to feel the skin bruising. After a moment, a hand rests on my shoulder. Enough. Of course, we all have many questions, our time traveler included, I am sure. But I say we do away with formalities a little. All right, at Chapter 3, I think this is a good time to pause. It's been just over an hour. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and save. Oops. Save. We'll just overwrite my first. Yes, overwrite the save. I will be on again probably Monday evening. And after that, we'll be taking a little break for 4th of July. And we'll see you guys back on Wednesday. Thanks again, everybody who tuned in. We will stream more Bright Oak next Saturday. I hope you all have a great night.